Hi, it's me, Toonatic. And just like last year, I'll be wrapping up 2024 with a good old tier list. I'll be taking a look at every piece of animated media I have watched this year, and then I'm going to attempt to rank it into one of the following categories. So we're starting off with haven't seen / finished it yet. Then we're moving on to guilty pleasures. This is the stuff that may not necessarily be considered good, but still hold a little special place in my heart regardless. Next up is Who Let Bro Cook. This is for the bottom of the bin worst things that I have seen this year. Followed by mid with stuff that was very inoffensive, but also didn't take risks necessarily. After that we got Pretty Good, Has Potential, which is movies and shows that were really good, but there was still this little bit of magic missing that would have made it special. And moved it to the final category, Peak, which is stuff that can be considered genre-defying and just plain awesome. Now some of the stuff I'm gonna be talking about actually didn't release in 2024, but a bit earlier. For example, the Spy Family movie, which released in winter of 2023. However, these few exceptions can be chalked up to the fact that they were made available to watch, at least from where I'm from, in 2024. It's only like 2 or 3 entries, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Speaking of heads up, there could be minor spoilers for some of the entries on this list. I just wanted to let you guys know. This took me so long to set up, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. Starting with the first thing, we got Beastars Season 3. I thought it was pretty good. I'm already familiar with the manga story, and I thought this was a perfectly fine adaptation. The only thing that I thought was kind of weird was that it ended in such an abrupt way, because they hyped this thing up to be like the big finale of the show. But turns out this is just part 1 of the final season. But at the final after the final episode ended, I was like, that's it? Okay. Next up we have My Dear Friend Nokotan, a comedy anime, which I also thoroughly enjoyed. I'm gonna put it into the pretty good category as well. This show is just so absurd, it's so much fun. It's just so off the walls. Like you probably have already seen some clips of it online, it's just, this show is unhinged and I love it. I also love that no one except our main character is ever concerned with what's going on around her. Like nobody else finds this weird and it's just peak comedy. You should really watch it. Next up is Exploding Kittens. Yeah, what can I say? It sure is a thing I've watched in 2024. So basically it's about God getting sent to Earth and being turned into a kitten of all things. Meow, 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 meow. Like he gets adopted by this family. And I gotta say, I really hate the shape of this one character, like one of the sons. Like, I don't know why, but it just really unsettles me. Ugh. I don't like these shapes. From what I can gather, this show is based on a card game, which is very interesting if you ask me. But yeah, it wasn't anything special. They set up a second season. But until then, I can confidently rank Exploding Kittens into mid. Had some stuff I liked, had some stuff I didn't like. We'll see how it goes from there. Okay, we gotta talk about Arcane Season 2 next. This second season, man, oh my gosh. It was just as incredible as the first season. I liked it a lot. It completely destroyed my heart. This is without a doubt going into peak, making it our first entry into this tier. Now we got the anime Rising Impact next. This show is about a little kid who is a prodigy in hitting golf balls really, really hard. And I really enjoyed this show. I liked all the characters. It was really interesting. Before watching this, I never would have thought that an anime about golfing, or golfing in general, could captivate me this much. But by episode 5, I was like, so this next shot should definitely be done with an iron, giving the environment of the current playing field. Making me already running around feeling like a real golf expert. I can't wait to watch the next season. So this is going into the pretty good category. Ellie and the Ghostly Ghost Train is another movie I've watched this year, and usually I wouldn't have gone out of my way to see it, but a good friend of mine actually worked on this film, so we made it like a whole day to go into the cinema and watching this movie together. So yeah, that means that we actually thoroughly enjoyed our time at the cinema. But when you look at the actual storytelling quality of this movie, well, it's definitely targeted towards a younger audience. It doesn't make it bad per se, but it, wasn't like the most impactful movie of the year. And I know the friend that actually worked on this movie thinks of it similarly. Yes, this film is perfectly fine and it's cute. But it's nothing special, unfortunately. So with that being said, we're gonna put Ellie and the Ghostly Ghost Train in the mid category. Next up, another anime, the Demon Slayer Ashura training arc. Yeah, it was another solid entry in the Demon Slayer anime. It's kind of what you expect of Demon Slayer at this point, so it's pretty good. Really cool fight scenes. So this set of episodes was actually there to set up the next big arc of the story, which it did pretty well. But the rest of the episodes before that, needless to say, it was my favorite set of episodes. And it was pretty effective in what it set out to do, that being setting up the next big arc of Demon Slayer, which I'm really excited to see when it comes out. So with all that in mind, the Ashura training arc goes into the pretty good category as well. Terminator Zero is an anime adaptation set in the world of the Terminator franchise. So this show would have been mid to good at best, but one thing that really elevates it is this character named Misaki. Her arc is really, really interesting. I don't want to spoil too much. The ethical dilemma her and the other characters tackle in this series is actually really interesting, and that's what kept me hooked throughout the show. So this is going into the pretty good category just because of this one character I really enjoyed and really liked. The next anime is Garuden: The Way of the Lone Wolf, and to be honest, I don't really remember a lot of this show. I know it was, don't get me wrong, it was perfectly serviceable, I believe, but I think the plot was nothing too special. It's just another fighting combat anime, which I really enjoy, but the plot is nothing special. And the animation isn't either. So that's that. I'm gonna put it into the mid category. Okay, I'm so sick of seeing clips from this movie because the last video I worked on was actually on the Mufasa movie. So things have happened. This movie actually released on December 20th, and I have already seen it, which I didn't think I was gonna do. And how did this movie repay my trust in believing in it and spending the last months working on a video trying to justify its existence? Well, by being incredible mid. This movie really ain't it. It was boring to watch. The character transition of Taka turning evil and becoming Scar was very unsatisfying. There was potential there to tell an interesting story, but this movie really didn't deliver. The songs are also painful to listen to. There aren't many in this movie, but what is there is ridiculous. Oh no, there's this one song where I believe Taka sings about wanting a brother, and he just like sings in the most obnoxious way. It's like and it's just so grating to listen to. The other song, the villain song, is equally as bad. It's just, there's like this huge menacing pack of white lions, and they're established to be like terrifying, but the villain song is just them going like bye 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 bye. Oh no, it just falls flat on every front. It's weird, it didn't have to exist, and for that reason we're gonna put it into the Who Let Bro Cook category. From painful to peak, coming in next is Twilight of the Gods. Now, when I first saw the trailer for this show, I knew this was right up my alley. I mean, the character designs are just gorgeous. Like, this is shape language done right. It's just so cool to look at, and it's so good. Like, it's a very adult show. It's very gruesome, it's very brutal, it's very horny as well, but I think it pulls up these things masterfully, and it was one of my highlights this year for sure. Just look at these character designs, just peak on every front. And for these reasons, Twilight of the Gods goes into the peak category as well. Next up we got Flow, this, what I've heard, beautiful movie rendered in such a nice art style. Unfortunately, I gotta confess, I haven't had the time to watch it yet, so this is going into the haven't seen it yet category. I've only heard positive things about it, and I will make sure to give it a watch in 2025, but for now it has to go into the haven't finished it yet category. Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. Now, this animated show, based on the video game franchise Tomb Raider, was animated by Powerhouse Animation. They're best known for doing the Castlevania series, Blood of Zeus. I immediately recognized their style from the trailer when I first watched it. To be fair, I have only seen like half of the show up until the filming of this video, but it has been a really solid series until now. So Lara Croft is such an interesting character to me, and seeing this show shed more light on her backstory was really interesting. She has so much trauma and angst, which is really holding her back, and it's just interesting to see her development throughout the show. Unfortunately, I haven't come around to actually watching the season finale. I would have to rank it in the haven't finished it yet category, which I'm gonna do, But if it weren't for me not finishing the show, from what I've seen, I would put it in the pretty good category. Next up, we got Invincible Season 2, Part 2. Another season split into parts, which is another rabbit hole I'm not gonna go into right now, but I do have opinions on it. Make sure to comment down below if you want a video on my thoughts. But yeah, let's actually talk about Invincible. So this batch of episodes takes off where the other left off. We have some new developments. My complaints or qualms with this show pretty much still persist, which is sometimes the animation can feel very limited, but other than that, I still enjoyed it a lot. The emotional stuff is really impactful and very effective in what it does. There were a few scenes that I would consider peak. It's a very entertaining watch, and so I gotta put it into the pretty good category as well. Next up, we got my adventures with Superman Season 2. And man, I was so excited for this new season, and I'm happy to say that it really delivered on the quality that the first season left off with. We got so much new lore and stuff happening. It was just amazing. Like, they introduced Kara, but she was evil in this version. It was just such a cool watch. One of my favorite things I've seen this year. It's really, really good. I would actually... Okay, I'm gonna go this far. I'm gonna put it in peak just because I enjoyed it so much. And I also love the relationship between Clark and Lois. Like, this show just does it right. If you haven't already, you should definitely give it a watch. Alright. Orion and the Dark. This movie is about this kid who's afraid of the dark and tries to overcome that fear, I guess, and meet some wacky characters along the journey, all based around the theme of the night. This DreamWorks movie released on Netflix. It wasn't really good. It's based on a children's book, I know that much, but it really wasn't a great watch. Like, don't get me wrong, DreamWorks did really cook this year, but just not with this movie. It was really messy when it came to the story. The art style is nice, I guess, but I think the characters were very unlikable. And unfortunately, I just can't recommend this movie, so I'll have to put it in the Who Let Bro Cook category. Because I just don't know why this movie turned out this way. Obviously, it's a lot better than Mufasa. But yeah, I just didn't like it a lot. Now, Hazbin Hotel released in January of 2024. A lot of people had very strong opinions on this show and what was going on behind the scenes. So obviously I've also seen the YouTube pilot back in the day, and the only thing I took away from watching it back then was sensory overload. I didn't even know where to focus my eyes. I was pleased to see that the actual Amazon show is a lot more pleasant to look at. The character designs there's still a lot, but obviously they are a lot more streamlined and actually animation friendly. If you take away all the drama surrounding the production of the show and the treatment of the old cast or people working on this show, it is a solid series. Yeah, they really did it. Now, obviously, this is a huge W for indie animation, which is something I'm really passionate about as well. And yeah, Hazbin Hotel has had huge success all over the world. Obviously, the limited episode count meant that things were happening at a really, really fast pace. Like the characters as well as the audience weren't really allowed to breathe or have a moment of peace before the next big thing happened. I really liked the finale. The final battle was really cool and reminded me a lot of the late 2010s, early 2020 cartoons and sort of the fandom culture around it, which is something that I personally really enjoyed. Obviously, many fandoms can be very toxic, but there was so much cool fan art and stuff. And I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to the next season. Obviously, the show isn't perfect. There's still room for growth, but I still think this all warrants its place to put it in the pretty good category, as it does show potential to be something really great. Alright, Muscle, Magic and Muscle Season 2. This is another solid season. I thought it was a pretty decent watch. Obviously, the opening done by Creepy Nuts, whom I'll get to later in this video, did a solid job with this one as well. It's a certified banger. But the show was more of the fun stuff that made the first season enjoyable. Like, obviously, I love myself a good tournament arc. But I feel like some things also dragged on a little, which is why I'm gonna put it into the mid category. Obviously, it's a pretty good show, which has only grown in popularity when the second season premiered. I've seen a lot more people talking about this show in 2024 than they did about the first season, which is pretty cool, and I can't wait where the next season will take us. Because obviously, a lot of crazy stuff was set up, and we'll see how it goes from there. Now, My Hero Academia Season 7 was also pretty solid. Deku is no longer emo, so he's back with his friends, fighting against Shigaraki and All for One. It's really cool to see everybody team up to fight against the bad guys. There's also so many just heartbreaking emotional scenes, which were pulled off really well, in my opinion. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the final season of My Hero Academia will be airing in 2025, and I'm also really looking forward to that. So with all that, I have to rank it in the peak category. I guess it's between pretty good and peak, because the good parts are just amazing. Like, especially this one character's death scene. It's done so well, and I was like at the edge of my seat while watching it. Vox Machina Season 3 was also incredible. I just love these goobers so much. Just seeing these characters trying to save the world in very unconventional ways is just peak. Like, they are so likable, they have great bonds with each other. I enjoyed every second of watching the new season. And for that reason, it also goes into the peak category. Next up, we got Catching Up, which is the cartoon pilot made by Ellis Mark, another animation commentary YouTuber. Yeah, this one's also really cool. Like, Ellis Mark is a huge fan of stuff like Family Guy and Fairly Odd Parents, and you can definitely see him paying homage to these shows in Catching Up. I also like the voice acting in this show. It's really solid. As I said, I love seeing creators on YouTube actually making animated shows and being successful with it. And this has so much potential. I really liked watching this. And that's why I'm gonna put it into the pretty good category as well. Alright, Baki Hanma vs. Kengan Ashura. This was actually a crossover that I was really looking forward to because I thought the premises of these shows are so similar, and it would be bonkers to actually see these two crossover. Seems like Netflix answered to my prayers, because they announced this crossover event in 2024, and I was really eager to find out what they were cooking. How did it turn out? Well, these two sure did fight each other. Obviously, you can't do anything that actually has a lasting impact on either of these stories, because it would just mess with the canon of both properties. That's why they couldn't go too far. All of the characters they paired up from both shows were really good matches for fighting each other, in my opinion. but this OVA, or whatever you want to call it, wasn't anything too special. It sure was cool seeing Oma Tokita being animated in 2D instead of 3D, like he is in his own show, but other than that, yeah, it's painfully mid. And that's where I'm gonna put it, in the mid category. Next up we got the Ranma reboot, which premiered earlier this year. And I really like Rumiko Takahashi's style of writing. For that reason I always wanted to get into the original show from the late 80s, early 90s. But before I had the chance to watch the original show, they announced this reboot. And not only is it incredibly good, but also I've been told that it actually tackles the more controversial plot points of the manga in a more graceful way and make it more adequate for modern audiences. And of course I gotta enjoy this show because it deals with issues about gender norms and your own identity and who you are regardless of how your body looks. Which, if you know anything about me, is something I'm really interested in seeing depicted in media. For that reason, I'm gonna put it in peak because it's one of the best anime reboots ever. Next up, we got Spellbound, a movie made by Skydance Animation, who were best known for hiring this guy, who was fired from Pixar for doing some really inappropriate stuff to his former co-workers. Now, the last movie the studio made, which was Luck, was pretty mid from what I've heard and seen. And this movie is better. It's very interesting. It's also a musical, which was something I didn't expect going into it. It's actually a pretty decent watch. It's also tackling stuff like a lot of kids could be struggling with, which is themes of divorce and guilt. And it does a pretty solid job with it. Oh, the music was actually made by Alan Menken, and it does sound incredible 90s, which is not a bad thing at all. So they were really trying to lean into the Renaissance Disney movie feel with this one, but also give it a modern twist. However, personally, it was just hard for me to separate the art from the artist. I just, like, why would you hire somebody who allegedly did some really bad things to be the head of a studio making movies for families? I don't know. So, even though I do have my qualms with this movie, I guess I'm gonna put it in the very low, pretty good has potential section. Actually between mid and pretty good. So just maybe don't rely on this guy, and then you should be good, Skydance Animation. Kite Man, hell yeah, is next. Now, this show is a spin-off to one of my favorite series, which is the Harley Quinn animated show. They decided to give a worst character of this show his own series, and I watched a few episodes, and to be completely honest, I didn't finish it. I just stopped after watching like 4 episodes. I just don't like Kite Man as a character, I'm sorry. However, from the few episodes that I've actually seen, I do think that the other characters do balance out his suckiness a lot. For example, his girlfriend was pretty cool to watch. Obviously Bane is always entertaining. And there were also a few cameos of our main 2 girls. But for me, that show just wasn't it. I probably also won't finish it, but that doesn't mean it's bad, it's just that it wasn't for me. However, the new season of Harley Quinn is going to come out in 2025, which is something that I'm really looking forward to. So I'll just have to wait until then. Next up, we got the My Happy Marriage OVA. Now, I've talked about this show in my last year's tier video, and this was just a special episode, they call it episode 13, to sort of bridge the gap between season 1 and season 2. It was alright, it was very cute, nothing special, so I'm just gonna put it in mid. However, I am looking forward to the second season. Alright, here's another big one, Smiling Friends Season 2. Now, the first episode of the second season got so much attention online, like, people really love this shit. Especially the new character Gwimbly, who is modeled after, like, early 3D video game characters. He sure captured the hearts of many people online. And the rest of the season was nothing to scoff at either. It was really cool. I especially liked the alien episode they did. It was just bonkers. I also really liked the one where this one scientist character is trying to create a homunculus. and his brother bursts in complaining that he is way too loud, and they just break out into this intense, rotoscope battle. It's just unhinged. This show is peak. It's still on my mind constantly. It has altered my brain chemistry in the best way. And for that reason, it's gonna go into the peak category as well. Next up, we got another peak movie. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in here real quick. This is Look Back, made by the creator of Chainsaw Man. And man, Fujimoto was really cooking with this one. Like, the themes in this movie are just from another world. And the animation is something to behold. It's just so peak. Personally, as an artist, I could relate to a lot of stuff from this movie. There were a lot of scenes where it was like, oh, I do that. Like I said, the expressions these characters make are off the charts. Incredible movie, very inspiring, also very heartbreaking. Overall, you should definitely watch this one. Alright, next up is a really interesting one. This is Friedefeld. Now, this show claims to be the first adult animated sitcom made in Germany. And it has been on my radar for a while, and one afternoon I just sat down and watched all 10 episodes of it. However, it does seem that not a lot of people were on board with the show, as you can see by the like to dislike ratio. Yeah, I don't think this will get a second season. It sure was interesting, and I just wanted to see what Germany would be able to cook up. So it's about these three siblings who were all conceived in the same night by one guy, and how they manage their chaotic life. Yeah, it's just very whack. They try to be the next Rick and Morty, but it's never really able to reach Rick and Morty's heights, or any heights for that matter. For that reason, I'm gonna put it in the mid category. Well, it was watchable at least, but there was nothing outstanding about it. It wasn't outstandingly good, it wasn't outstandingly bad, it was just, look guys, German people can make animated shows as well. Definitely interesting, but ultimately nothing special, unfortunately. Next up, we got Oshi no Ko Season 2. This time, one of the main characters is part of a stage play, and I think it was adapted beautifully, seeing how these Japanese stage plays are set up and performed. That was really cool. I also liked how the mangaka of the original story was upset by how much they changed her story, but ultimately was able to compromise with everybody for this story to be executed in a way that would suit the big stage. I especially love the scene where she is super overworked and argues with her former senpai before these two ultimately talk it out. Like, that was really cool, really heartwarming. Also, the way shit hit the fan in the latter half of the season was also crazy. Like, Ruby didn't have much to do during this stage play arc, but after that, oh my gosh. And also the stuff that happens to Aqua, oh, it's really good. The animation is beautiful as always. It just continues to be as good as the first season. So that's why it's pretty good. Next up, Spy Family Code White. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this actually came out in late 2023, but one of my good friends and I had to wait till spring 2024 to actually watch it in theaters. And man, this was one of the best movie experiences I had all year. I was laughing my butt off during so many scenes in this movie. Like that part where Yor is drunk. It was really good. The dub version I watched was also really cool. You could see that the localizers had a lot of fun with translating this movie. Yeah, great animation, funny as hell, and also really epic when it comes to the scope of the story. For the fact that this movie was able to make poop jokes actually funny, it is peak. Next up, we got Good Times Black Again. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this one. So, I grew interested when watching the trailer because of the cool art style. I thought it looked really interesting, and it seemed like it could be pretty cool. But when you actually turn on the audio to this trailer, yeah, cracks begin to form really quickly. So, this story is about a black family and their daily life and struggles. and they do live in a rough part of Chicago, to say the least. Yeah, so a lot of criticism towards the show comes from the fact that there's a lot of stereotypes about people of color present in this show. This could have been interesting if it weren't presented in such an over-the-top and unrealistic way. So it just feeds into harmful stereotypes. Like there's this one baby who's also a drug dealer, and it's just so off the wall. So audiences also didn't seem to like it very much. They did set up a second season in the finale, but I do have my doubts that it'll ever get greenlit for more. So I'm gonna put it in the Who Let Bro Cook category. Like, it's unfortunate. This could have been fun, but it just wasn't. It's harmful. This show did more harm than good. Now, Monsters 103, Mercy's... Oh my gosh, I can't say the name. Now, Monsters 103, Mercy's Dragon Damnation. Oh my gosh, this name took so long to get right. Is an adaptation of an early manga made by One Piece author Eiichiro Oda. And it's about this sword fighter dude who tries to save this one town. And you can clearly see the DNA of what would ultimately become One Piece in this show. Like, this main guy is basically just like a beta version of Zoro. And it was really good. I had a lot of fun watching it. Especially because Zoro is my favorite of the Stride Pirates. And the way things connect to One Piece at the end, that was just chef's kiss. It was a really cool action movie, and I believe it was only like an hour long or something. So yeah, spectacular. I had a great time watching it. The only thing that I just couldn't get over was how bro got two different types of hair structure going on at the same time. Like, he sort of got this curly section going on in the back and just straight strands of hair in the front. Like, damn. Like, how does he pull it off? Monsters 103. Oh no, I can't say the name again.
No.
But despite that, it was just unapologetically fun, and I definitely recommend it. Next up, we got the Spice and Wolf reboot. Another anime reboot that was done really well. I remember watching the original Spice and Wolf back in the day, and having to watch every episode in glorious 360p, split into 3 parts on YouTube back in the day. That's just how it was. Needless to say, I was really excited to see how they would handle rebooting the show with a more modern animation style. And what can I say, they did a pretty solid job. And I love comparing the two adaptations, and the new adaptation was done beautifully. However, I wasn't able to watch a lot of the show before making this video, and for that reason I gotta put it in the haven't finished it yet category. Next up, we got the Grimm Variations, another anime. Now in this show, each of the episodes, one of the classic Grimm fairy tales, in a very interesting and unique way. Most of the times with a lot of gore and blood and deceit and psychological trauma. But hey, there was plenty of that in the original Grimm's Fairy Tales, to be fair. I thought some episodes were better than others. Like the Cinderella one was pretty good, or the Towns Musicians of Bremen. I really like the character designs in that one. Actually, the whole show had great character designs. Like, that was really interesting. And seeing them add unique twists to these well-known Grimm's fairy tales was awesome to see. Like, I'd love to see more of this. In most of the episodes in the Grimm Variations have like a crazy plot twist at the end, and some pull it off better than others. I don't know, I'd still recommend the show. For that, I'm gonna put it at the highest high of the mid category. It's bordering on pretty good, but I feel like there was just a little bit more missing to make it great. Next up, we got Reincarnated as a Sword. Now, I usually don't watch isekai anime a lot, just because the formula is so overdone, but I was bored one afternoon and decided to give this show a watch for some reason, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It's the classical isekai plot setup. Person dies, gets reincarnated into a fantasy world with video gamey stat stuff going on, and then ends up becoming stronger throughout the series. Now this time, our protagonist gets reincarnated into a sword, which is nothing too crazy when it comes to isekai plots. However, he ends up befriending this little cat girl who was a slave, and he kind of helps her break free from that, and then they team up and he sort of becomes her protector. Now, this show and the bond that they share is pretty cute for the most part. I gotta give him that. Fran, the cat girl, is an interesting character. I like her personality. This show does fall into some anime cliches I thought we left behind a long time ago, but ends up narrowly avoiding getting too creepy. There's was one scene where she buys some underwear, and yeah, you see how that sounds. But for the most part, this show is wholesome and a pretty decent watch for when you don't have anything else to pass your time. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it into the mid category. Now, Invincible Fight Girl was one of the favorite things I've seen this year. Like, when this show got announced, I immediately knew this was gonna be right up my alley. And, it was. So it's basically set in a world where everybody's obsessed with wrestling and everything is also themed around wrestling. Our main character, Andy, wants to try and become the best one. And this show pays homage to a lot of action anime, which is something I really like. Like, I believe they also use some Dragon Ball sound effects in the first episode especially. And yeah, it's just so much fun. I love the art style, I love the characters. And my favorite episode was the one where she tries to learn the perfect punch and struggles with it a lot until her friends remind her of what's really important. Now, I remember back when the first episode came out, there were some people saying that this show falls into so many anime cliches and is kind of cringe for that, and I was like, why? Like, you guys are watching peak right now, come on. But at the same time, after finishing the first season, I'm not sure if I find the inner monologue scenes going on in the characters' heads in this show cringe or not. Like, obviously this is something you see in a lot of anime, like Naruto and stuff, but yeah, I can't decide whether or not I find it cringe or not. However, this show is still one of my favorite things I've watched all year. I think it does become peak after episode 7, which was definitely a standout watch in the show's lineup. Everything after that is also stellar. Like I said, episode 5 was probably my favorite episode. You should really watch the show if you have a chance. It's on Adult Swim, so please, please let there be a second season. I'm gonna put it in peak. Alright, another Netflix movie, Velma the Unicorn. Now, Velma is a little pony who loves singing, but no one pays attention to her. She gets covered in glittery paint, and suddenly people love her, and she becomes a big star. And it's a story as old as time. The fame gets to her head, she betrays her old friends, and ultimately her secret gets revealed. So nothing too groundbreaking on the storytelling front, but still a solid movie in my opinion. I'd put it in the mid category for that reason. Next up, we got the second best hospital in the galaxy. This is an Amazon Prime show, and definitely one of my guilty pleasures this year. So I haven't seen anybody talking about this, and this is partially the reason why I'm making this tier list, just to shed some light on lesser known shows and movies, to maybe expose them to more people and let them gain a bigger audience. So it's about like an alien hospital, and our two main characters are just trying to master their everyday life, working in this whack hospital, and there's an overarching plot that gets resolved at the end of the season. But other than that, the episodes are pretty standalone. I like the characters enough. This show actually got recommended to me by one of my colleagues, and I'm really glad it was. I enjoyed my time with it. I know audiences were mixed on the show, but I definitely had a great time watching it, and I'm really hoping that this gets a second season in the future. Fingers crossed. Whew, okay, we're gonna talk about the Uzumaki anime next. Now, this show has been in production for a while, and wow, everybody was just so hyped for it to finally release, and this year was finally the time. The first episode was peak. It looked so great, everybody loved it, but after that, episode 2 aired, and yeah, the tables turned, to say the least. This one was really rushed, had some really questionable animation, and was overall paced a lot worse than the first episode. The third episode was no different, and the finale, episode 4, did manage to look a little better than episodes 2 and 3, but also had some instances that were just very choppy, and definitely fell into the sliding PNGs across the screen category. So, what are my thoughts on the Uzumaki anime? Well, I do think that it's still the best adaptation of Junji Ito's work to date. Obviously, it's none of the people working on the show's fault that it turned out the way it did. They were just pressured by the network to bring something out, and I think, and the producer of the anime stated that we were screwed over, and the options were A, not finish it and air nothing and call it a loss, B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete, or C, run all 4, warts and all. Out of respect for the hard work, we chose C. And I do respect that. I just think it's tragic how this went down, and there was just so much wasted potential. Like, this could have been one of the greatest things ever made, and instead we just got mediocrity. Like, it would have been different if episode 1 also sucked, but seeing all this wasted and unrealized potential is just heartbreaking, man. And for that, we gonna put it in the Who Let Bro Cook category. Like I said, no fault to the team working on the show at all, just to the people in charge. Alright, Kengan Ashura Season 3. And we're back to the 3D models. Now, our boy Oma Tukita did already get some time in the spotlight earlier with a crossover with Baki, but this year also saw the release of the finale of the Kengan Ashura anime. There was just a lot of, it was just fight after fight after fight, which isn't a bad thing, but there was nothing there to elevate it to be great, so for that I'm just gonna put it into the mid category as well. The ending was pretty cool, I suppose, but other than that, it was nothing too breathtaking. But one thing that definitely was breathtaking was Delicious in Dungeon, or Dungeon Meshi. Holy heck, I don't even know where to start. This show is just one of the best things I've ever seen, like, period. Not even just 2024. First off, it was made by my favorite anime studio, Studio Trigger, and they adapted the manga beautifully. I love the characters, I love the comedy, and the story is also great. I love that all of the main characters are on the spectrum. And it also gave us Yuri, which is always great. Whoa, hey! Definitely peak. I enjoyed every second of this show. I can't wait for the second season. This is definitely one of my favorite things ever. Peak. Alright, Solo Leveling is next. Yeah, this show was interesting. So, in this world, like, people go into dungeons and defeat monsters. Every person is categorized into a category based on how much strength they possess. And our main character is in the weakest group. He ultimately dies, but gets a second chance at life, and becomes extremely badass and OP in the process. While watching this, I couldn't help but notice that, I don't know how to say it, but this show really tries to appeal to the male power fantasy. It also doesn't help that every single female character is unbearable and very, underdeveloped. Like, don't get me wrong, the fight scenes sure are fun, but other than that, I didn't like any of the characters, to be honest. This show's writing does have its flaws, and for that reason, I'll put it into the mid category. Okay. What can I say that hasn't already been said about Dandadan? This show is hands down peak. Like, after only watching the first episode, I was hooked, and I knew I couldn't wait like another week and wait to see how the story would continue, so I ended up buying the manga and have been reading it ever since, and it's just so good. I also love comparing the manga to the anime and how they adapted certain scenes, and every single time, it has been an absolute W. It does not only respect the source material, but elevates it. For example, this one scene where this character runs around frantically looking for a little daughter. It's great in the manga, I love the expressions, but the anime chooses to depict this scene in first person, which puts you in the shoes of his character, and it's just so great. Oh my god. And the colors during the fight scenes, it's just great. I love the characters. Ira is my problematic fave. She's just, one of my friends put it best. She's an empath. Who would have thought that my two favorite things I've watched this year would start with D and air on Netflix every Thursday? Dandadan and Dungeon Meshi are both peak, and ranking it in anything else but peak would be a lie. This show is great, and the opening by Creepy Nuts, oh my gosh. Confession time? I usually skip anime intros, but this was the only instance where I haven't skipped the intro a single time. It's just so peak, like, wait, and the memes coming out of the opening, oh my gosh, because it sounds like there's Pikmin chanting in the background. You've probably seen all the crazy fan art and fan animations. I love it so much. Another thing that was great was Inside Out 2, a worthy sequel to the original in my opinion. I'm gonna put it into peak. If only for the fact that it was finally able to dethrone the big bad. That being the Lion King 2019 remake. And Inside Out 2 definitely deserves the #1 spot. Although I do like the original one a little more, I still think it was a solid entry, great animation, interesting story, and really cool depiction of a panic attack. And definitely one of the few high points from Disney in 2024. Public announcement, Gentry Chow is peak and you should definitely watch it if you haven't already. This is another certified banger that released this year. I was really looking forward to this show when I watched the trailer, just because of the art style. And yeah, this show reminds me a lot of early 2000s cartoons like American Dragon or Ben 10, but with a modern twist, and it's so good. The story is really interesting, the colors and animation are great, the characters are likable, just please watch it. My goodness. Man, this needs a second season so bad. It would be a crime to not renew Gentry Chow for a second season. It's definitely peak. Okay, Moana 2. Okay, so I've actually made a video about this at the beginning of the year, when it was announced that the Moana Disney Plus show was going to be transformed into a theatrical release. That was quite the decision. Yeah, and the movie finally released this November, and, well, let's just say you could really see that this was once a TV show. Yeah, like, you could literally see where each episode would have started and ended. They just go from act to act to act, and what's even worse is that they even set up this, like, Marvel-esque cinematic universe with the post-credit scene. Oh, no, it's just exhausting. The songs, I hated all of them. Like, I wouldn't listen to any of them on Spotify. It's just painfully mid, what else can I say? I guess the finale was pretty cool, but then again, they also kind of jumped the shark in my opinion during that sequence. Yeah, it just wasn't anything special. I'm pretty sure it made a ton of money, but story-wise, not great. And I was really looking forward to this one as well, so it's just such a shame. Hell's Paradise was also something I've watched this year. Now this anime is about this one assassin who is trained to survive even the craziest of stuff, and he and these other convicts and their prison guards get sent to this one island to do something really special, and this premise was actually really interesting to see. I thought the characters were really cool. I especially liked the relationship between the main character and his prison guard. Like, they had a pretty cool dynamic going on. I liked the psychology or motivation behind the main character's actions. That was really interesting, and I can't wait to see how things pan out at the end. And for that reason, I'm gonna put Hell's Paradise in the pretty good category as well. Now, the last thing on my list is The Wild Robot, and oh my gosh, this movie was everything. It had great animation, a truly heartfelt story, and really likable characters. I am a huge fan of the found family trope, and this movie delivered on it. Let me tell you that. I recently rewatched this movie, and I did also cry during that rewatch. This is what I meant when I said that DreamWorks did actually cook this year. Please go watch The Wild Robot. It's definitely one of the best things to come out of 2024. And for that reason, it has to go into the peak category. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with any of my picks. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on 2024's animated media. Also, please let me know if I missed anything. I'm pretty sure I did. And with that, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, and for some reason would like to see me yap on about more animated movies and TV shows, make sure to check out any of my other videos. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Until the next one, bye!